Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mayor Sal Bonaccorso here at the TV 36 studio at Town Hall in Clark, along with Township Business Administrator John Laezza. I want to thank everyone who's tuning in tonight or who will watch this on rebroadcast. We're here tonight to talk about our fair share housing, moderate to low income housing that this township is going through right now. We want to remind everyone that this is a mandate from the court that each town in New Jersey has to show how they are going to provide for affordable low to moderate income housing. Clark's Township is one of them. We are doing that as we speak. I do want to say to the residents of this community, I am not happy at all about this. I want to put this right out, get it out. As mayor, this is something that is a mandate that we have to do, or we can have great penalty in this community. As a lifelong resident, someone who's been in government here for 20 years, it's something that is really going to annoy me to have to do my job and do, but to keep this community under the protection of the Council on Affordable Housing and away from such builder's remedy. I'm going to get into that a little bit more later. One of the reasons I'm here tonight, folks, is some of you may have seen this flyer dropped at your front door. I believe this flyer is political in nature. There's no one's name on it. And that's annoying in itself, because if you're going to alert citizens to something that's going on, then why not put your name on it? The problem is this flyer has a lot of sentences that aren't exactly true. It's actually imbecilic in nature. When I go through this, I'll show you why. One of the first lines in it is an out-and-out complete mistake. This is designed, in my opinion, to try to get the community riled up and upset and create a political problem here. As far as I'm concerned, this is not about politics. This is about government. This is when the mayor and the council people have to put their big boy pants on and do things in a professional manner to protect our community going forward. What we're going to be doing is things that I wouldn't wake up one morning and say, this is what I want to do for the Township of Clark. And I want that to be clear. Sal Bonaccorso did not wake up one morning and say, oh my God, this is something I think would be good in Clark. It's court mandated. We are following the law of this state, and we are working hard to make sure what's done here is going to be appropriate and something that every citizen, myself included, could be happy about in the end. We might not love it, but we'll be able to accept it and live with it. At this time, I'm going to turn this portion over to John. He's going to give you a little background on the negotiations in court, what we've been doing for the last couple of years, where the number was, where we got it down to, and then I'm going to come back and address this flyer and some of the untruths that are in it, and hopefully this will answer a lot of your questions you have. If you don't feel comfortable enough, you're always willing to email us, call us, or stop by. If we're here, we're glad to help you. And we have a meeting on April 6th at the high school auditorium, and we did book the high school auditorium to make sure there was sufficient seating prior to this flyer, prior to this TV broadcast, because we want everybody in the township to know who's interested and may want to come out to ask questions what we're exactly doing. The township government is hiding nothing here. We're working hard to preserve the beauty and quality of Clark. John, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, the Supreme Court of the State of New Jersey in June of 2013 listened to Governor Christie's Office of the Attorney General file an appeal to remove COA from being. It was an organization that was in charge of the Council on Affordable Housing. Governor Christie lost that case, and the Supreme Court indicated to the legislature is their responsibility to change the rules so that affordable housing can be distributed throughout the entire state of New Jersey. The The legislature worked on it for approximately 2 years, did nothing, so the Supreme Court indicated that obviously the state legislature doesn't have the ability to pass a law to effectuate the Mount Laurel decision. He gave it to the 15 Superior Court assignment judges in the state of New Jersey. So this process will be going on throughout the entire state of New Jersey at the hands of Superior Court justices who, between you and I, have little or no knowledge of the Affordable Housing Act. So each of them had to hire what they called masters to help them go through this process. At that time, they indicated that we, the Township of Clark, and every community in the state of New Jersey had to file for a declaratory judgment that their first and second round substantive certifications were still in effect and gave them protection from the builder's remedy. And the mayor will talk about the builder's remedy, or I will talk about the builder's remedy later on. We filed for our declaratory judgment July of 2015. When we filed the declaratory judgment, it was then our responsibility to notify every interested party that was interested in fair share housing, and there are a myriad of them throughout the state of New Jersey. The first one is the Fair Share Housing Center. They are basically the lobbying unit, if you will, for all fair share houses and all builders. They are part of the Builders Association, or at least they're funded by the Builders Association, and their role is to make sure that there is building capacity in every community that will supply fair share housing. The Fair Share Housing Center have done their studies of every municipality in the state of New Jersey, and they determine what parcels are vacant that you can build affordable housing upon. We found that pretty interesting. And so after the declaratory judgment, it was our responsibility to then develop an interim settlement plan that would satisfy the courts. We presented our interim settlement plan that satisfied both the fair share housing, and the intervener was a developer that had property in Clark who wanted to build 250 apartments with little or no affordable housing units upon them. Each of those presented their cases to courts. The Fair Share Housing Center presented their cases. The intervener presented their case. We sat in mediation meetings with mediators I would say 4 or 5 times in the presence of the master for the assignment judge in Union County, Judge Cassidy. And by January 13th, 2017, we came up with an interim settlement. That interim settlement basically delineated the 9 sites that that are shown on the flyer, which was discussed in executive session with the planning board because litigation was still going on at the time. How this flyer got out obviously was through someone from the planning board, which was not necessary, although we're happy it's out because it gives us an opportunity to talk on television to explain the entire process. The interim settlement then indicated that they would accept these sites. At the outset, Fair Share Housing indicated that we had the ability to put up 389 affordable housing units, and our prior rounds, the first and second rounds that were basically developed in this community since 2000 through 2015 in our first and second rounds. The third round was never accepted because COA and the courts basically knocked it out for the whole state of New Jersey. And we came up with these plans. So we have 93 obligations from our prior rounds that we had not completed yet in their plan, and the 389 would have been 482 affordable units. When we completed our interim settlement agreement, we came up with 170 new units plus the 93. which rounds out to about 263 units. This plan here that we're presenting will accommodate more than them, but since it's a realistic development plan are the key words that is accepted by both Fair Share Housing and the courts, that you develop a plan, and if developers think it's realistic, they'll go in and attempt to make a buy of it or not. It has to be basically profitable for builders, or they're not going to be building it. So they're going to be building beautiful apartments or complexes, and then put in the 15% that's required for fair share housing. So this is a development plan that will cover Clark through 2025. And by today's standards and the cost of building, 2025 will be a push if all these developments come through. There are certain areas of these developments, the mayor and I will tell you, that we think are positive for the community. But that'll be settled. But that's how we got to this basis.
John, I want to interrupt you for 1 second because I want to emphasize on the point. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to read shortly the areas that are up for this redevelopment. And again, not being a fan of this whatsoever, but having to do my job as the chief executive of the community and comply without having legal problems, we put together an area. We had the township planner, professional, township engineer, township attorney, John, myself, then ultimately the planning board and the governing body. All are going to be going through this. The thing that I want to make perfectly clear to this community, so you hear it tonight, just because these sites are on the list, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be built. Or maybe they're going to be built in 5, 10, 15, or 20 years from now. Okay, I'm going to just mention one site on the list just to give you the idea, and it's the Schifferstein site. That's been on the affordable housing list since I think 1992, if I'm correct on that, a year. I talked to Andrew Schifferstein yesterday, who's a friend. He came by to discuss this. And I said, Andy, are you going to be selling your property anytime soon? He said, absolutely not. My brother and I are going to work that farm we have for many, many years and maybe hand it off to their heirs someday. So there's a site that's in the plan because when it gets sold, it could be, it is suitable to do something there by the eyes of Fair Share and the court that we had to come up with. As John said earlier, has to be realistic. We can't say, tongue-in-cheek, oh yeah, Arthur L. Johnson High School would be a great place for low to moderate income housing if the school ever goes out. Well, the school's never going to go out. See, I'm trying to make you understand what the word realistic means. We can't put it on something that will never be developed. It wouldn't work. The courts wouldn't accept it. We wouldn't get our plan approved, and then we'd be in jeopardy of builder's remedy, what I will explain to you going forward in a few minutes. But I'm going to turn it back to John to go through a couple of more of the numbers, and then we'll get back to talking and explaining how this all works.
The interim settlement agreement was completed January 2017, and the court gave us until June 29th to come up with all the paperwork. Basically, we have all the paperwork now. This is all the paperwork. This will be the plan and everything that has to back up the plan, how it's going to be sold, who's going to be the administrative agent. It's an outside firm that will make a determination as to who has the ability to live in the affordable units. They will develop a list 4 months prior to the construction of any facilities to determine how the affordable units have to be broken down. 10% have to be low income, 20%, 30% have to be moderate income, 30% have to be low income, and 20% have to be moderate income.
Of the entire plan.
Of the entire plan. So basically, if you look at that in case, and what is low income? Well, for a one-bedroom apartment that can hold 2 people per se, we are in region 2. 2 people would have to make, to be very low, $22,000. 3 people would have to be able to make $36,000. But they wouldn't put 3 people in a 1-bedroom apartment. They'd have to go into a 2-bedroom apartment. And 2-bedroom apartment could probably hold a husband and wife, or a spouse, and an interested person, and 2 children. Because nowadays, I guess you don't have to be married. But 4 people can make $45,000 and live in a 2-bedroom apartment. If you happen to be married with 3 children or 4 children and need a 3-bedroom apartment, and if they are the right gender, you can make $78,000. So that basically, if you look at that moderate income, the revenue you can make is anywhere from $25,000 to $78,000, and you can have assets worth about $175,000. That's in Region 2 for 2016. That goes up each year as rents go up and income goes up. The other goal that we seek is there are, believe it or not, a large percentage of people in the township of Clark that pay 35% of their income for either their mortgage or their rent. That's a figure that's above average. They really would like those people that live in town, that live in those apartments, if they're paying more than 35% of their income for rent or mortgage, they could be considered affordable. And if you live in one of those homes, and the home is basically under $183,000, we, the township, can supply you with support if you need a new roof, or if you need a new kitchen sink, or a new stove, or things of that matter, to improve it, to bring it up to the quality of the affordable housing person can live to, and reduce, and know that you're going to reduce your mortgage. So that these are the ways we can accommodate each of these programs, with not only apartments, but remodeling homes, upgrading homes, and doing some...
And John, that could be senior citizens' home,
Can be
a lonely senior.
market is anyone from 18 to 65, 70, 80.
The other thing I just want to cut in for a second, John, to explain one thing to you folks. I know when you hear the words low income, especially, we're talking low and moderate income, immediately you're getting pictures of gangbangers from Newark and Irvington moving in and, creating something in Clark that we haven't had before, an element of, people who are on a low income, who are in desperate situations. Don't be fooled by the fact that this, if there's any positives to pick out of this pot, one of them would be, you can have a young man or lady coming out of high school who goes or doesn't go to college, who starts out at a job at $30,000 or $35,000 a year. One of our own children, one of our neighbors, could be eligible, will be eligible for one of these apartments if and when the fact that they are built. This could be for people of all ages. So there's a lot of fear that's being put out here about, Clark is never going to be the same. Look, again, and I'll stress it throughout the show, I'm not happy about this. I think statewide, not only in Clark, this creates overcrowding. Here in Union County, where we're overcrowded, the courts and the Builders Association and Fair Share went after these towns to overcrowd it. Now, just to give you a couple examples of what's happening, and John and I will play ping pong back and forth so we can keep going at this. At the Government Affairs Chamber of Commerce meeting last week, it was brought to my attention when this came up as a conversation, because again, it's statewide, that if you are familiar with the Township of Westfield, the Yankee Car Wash at the end of Rowway Avenue, that's been there since I've been a young boy. I remember going there with my parents and now myself. That building has been sold. They're going to be knocking that down, and they're going to put up an apartment complex. I think they're raising another building to put in apartments with low to moderate income housing.
70 units.
70 units. If you go up Central Avenue into Westfield, between North and South Avenue, You'll see up on the right side of you when you're, I think at South it is, North Avenue going under the train trestle, South Avenue, you're going to see to the right a very big apartment complex going up there, which will also house low to moderate income housing. Why I bring that up is I just want the community to understand it's not something that we've dreamt up or we're pushing the card in wanting to do. It's mandated. We're complying with the law. As an elected official, it's my job to comply with the law. And unfortunately, this is a law I do not agree with. I was raised by very wise parents who taught me, in life, you eat what you kill, the old hunting adage. I don't go around, ladies and gentlemen, or I don't hear many of you going around crying that I can't afford to live in a very, very high affluent community like Alpine, New Jersey. I'm very happy living in Clark, very proud of living in Clark. This is what my family and I can afford. This is where we are. When you have this integration of different levels of poverty into different towns, it's to try to satisfy people who can't afford to live in Clark Township. Unfortunately, some of those people have legitimate issues and problems why they can't afford to live in a beautiful town like Clark. Unfortunately, there's some people out there who never took advantage of the free public education that we all can have through the New Jersey schools to better yourselves to live in towns that you want to live in. The snowflakes is the new word out there in politics that were won governor seats in the past. The Corzines, the McGreeveys, the Florios, the Byrne, people of this nature integrated and wanted this integrated into their towns in the state of New Jersey. The Supreme Court of New Jersey, appointed by these governors, many of these Superior Court judges appointed by these governors and senators that take up space in the legislature, and a lot of them do take up space. These are people that believe this is right. John said earlier, he doesn't believe there's a Superior Court judge that's qualified enough to really make these decisions. Oh, well, too bad. That's how the program is being run. That's what we have to live with. And they do it through a master who helps them disseminate and formulate all this information and then ultimately make a peaceful negotiation between the towns and the groups. As we said earlier, I want to just emphasize again, this is Clark, this is Westfield, this is Cranford, Scotch Plains, Fanwood. And these are the areas throughout New Jersey and Union County that are going to see a change. We're going to see a change, folks. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you or try to sugarcoat it. The only thing I could say to you is, when will the change come? Is it a drastic change? And is it something that we can swallow? John, are you ready for me to go through the areas that...
Sure.
Okay. I want to go through the areas that were listed on this flyer, but they are the areas, so some of them are. We're going to talk about it. Right over here, they said that areas that are being proposed for rezoning of 9 throughout the township as far as construction of affordable housing. All these zones will be permitted high density with 4-story buildings, okay? Some of that is correct, some of it is not there. They have property number 1 to show you how idiotic the person who did this flyer is, who doesn't understand what he or she is talking about, is Westfield Avenue at Terminal. Well, let me just hit the delete button. That's already been built. That's the senior housing center that is Woodcrest that has been built in town already. So throw that out. One of the other proposed areas was the Raritan Road gas station next to Dr. Flanagan's office by Madison Hill Road. That is correct. That's been sitting vacant for many years. Years ago, I'm going to say maybe 15 years ago, a builder did go to put up apartments there, and he wanted to put more than he was able, the zoning board was allowing him to do, so that project was knocked out.
He wanted 16, and there's only 12 that can go.
Yeah, he wanted 16 and it was zoned for 12.
It's only 12.
Westfield Avenue, across from Manny's Diner and Bank of America, which is the Mady property, which is, my version of Jurassic Park, the way I look at it over there. It's a mess. I mean, I'm being honest. That property has been like that since I can remember. And I don't see, it's not a really big piece when you look at it and see the wetlands that are, there's a little creek back there, so there's a fraction of wetlands. The Schifferstein Farm, okay, very big parcel of land. As I said earlier, I talked to the Schiffersteins. They have no inclination at selling their property anytime that I would bet in the next 20 or 30 years, and maybe longer than that. God willing for them. So that's an area that's in play, but I don't see being developed. The other area is Jack's Tavern. Right here on Brant and Westfield Avenue, the eyesore of Clark. There is a plan right now in place to put a new CVS drugstore up. We're all tickled to death about that. Now, they're going to have to comply with having apartments on top. If they choose not to, they'll be able to buy that obligation off. They can legally buy that obligation off. John said earlier about how we can then use that money to rehab low to moderate income homes right here in town. It could be a senior citizen who has a nice little cape that's in disrepair. So that's the Jack's Tavern site. The other sites are, I'm going to talk to, is the Temple site on Valley Road. I surely hope the temple is going nowhere in any foreseeable future. It's an asset in town to our Jewish friends and neighbors to have their home of worship right here in Clark. And I don't see that as an area that's in play anytime soon. The area that is in play is the Walnut and Valley, the Evening Realty site. As John told you, this was one of the principals that came in and started this negotiation to the town because they want to sell it and they want to get rid of it. There will be apartments there. There will be low to moderate income housing. But I do want to say one thing to you folks. When we say that, it's not the entire building. It's 15% of the entire building. So if you're looking at 50 units at a site, let's say, you're talking about 8 units, 7.5, but you don't build a half an apartment, so it would be 8 units. So don't be fooled by the fact that if you say, okay, Walnut and Valley is going to have an apartment complex, it's not low and moderate in every single apartment. The builder would never be able to afford to pay money to get mortgages and to have a successful project on the low and moderate rental incomes. So there's going to be market value there. One of the, as John said, part of the negotiation, they're looking to put very nice high-end apartments in there. We are going to have a standard of design when these areas, if and when they are erected someday, to make sure they have the quality and the standard that we have. We're not looking to develop projects here, and by no means will it be that way. So please, don't be scared into thinking that that kind of stuff is going to happen. Now, let's talk about the old A&P site. That's in play. That has been another eyesore in Clark for many, many years. I answer questions every day throughout the community about that site. That's a site where a builder or the owner or whomever at that site can redevelop it, put restaurants or stores on the bottom, and build apartments on top. I think right now our zoning would allow about 50 apartments, John, am I correct?
58 on that.
58 apartments. So if you're taking 15% of that, you're looking around roughly 8 of those apartments would be low to moderate income housing. Along Westfield Avenue to downtown Village, like we are all admiring right now about Cranford, Westfield, Fanwood, towns like this, the new in vogue thing to do is to put a store or an office or a restaurant on the bottom floor and build beautiful apartments on top. Not a long time ago, I ran for re-election back in November. During the election season, probably the same people who put this flyer out were criticizing the fact that Sal has done nothing about Westfield Avenue. Well, let's talk about Westfield Avenue. Most successful downtowns usually have a train that is in walking distance to create pedestrian traffic and foot traffic. We do not have that in Clark. This would create a downtown area. As those buildings down there slowly sell, and again, no one really has a time frame on it, I would say to me, Jack's Tavern and the old A&P would be two prime areas that have been disgusting for many years, but now would finally have a facelift and bring some viability to developing a wonderful downtown. We're looking to develop a plan, neighbors of Clark, that is going to look like what you see in Cranford right now. Up on South Avenue, I guess North Avenue, John, where you're going to have wonderful stores, offices, restaurants on the bottom, beautiful apartments on top. They're going to be market rate apartments. There's going to be a splattering of low and moderate income housing in there, because again, the law provides that we must do that. But for a builder to pay for the project, you also have to have market rate. So you have enough money to be able to pay for your construction obligations. It's not going to be a flim-flam plan. If and when those areas get developed, they're going to be developed now on the lines that we developed Clark Commons with, which is a beautiful, outstanding area that is going to be put into different work on the building, stone, stucco, things of this nature. It's not going to be just slopped up and put together. The other area they're talking about, yes, that's it. The downtown village, which is Westfield Avenue, from Madison Hill Road up to Brant Avenue, and the old A&P site. Ladies and gentlemen, they say here in this flyer that, if you live on Westfield Avenue, you're going to pay a penalty, you're going to do this, you're going to do that if you want to do construction. That's not necessarily correct. It could be, but not necessarily. Folks, I'm going to be very honest. I really don't want residential on Westfield Avenue between Brant and Madison Hill Road, if you want a real downtown. Now, I will never take those properties through eminent domain. I am not a mean-spirited person that want to hurt someone and displace them from their home. But rest assured, the people that own properties here, when this zoning gets put into place, they just hit the jackpot, because their homes are going to be worth a lot more money than they could have got yesterday. And that's a fact. Because you're now going to be able to buy those houses, or all or some, put an office, put a store, put a couple apartments on top. We meet our obligation with fair share housing. We develop a real downtown Westfield Avenue, which everybody wants. Everybody wants. And this is an area that we feel is an area that, if we have to develop a plan, this will be essential to helping that area. It'll bring foot traffic, the apartments, to those stores that are there already, and new ones coming in, and restaurants, hopefully. But again, ladies and gentlemen, for that to happen, the people there need to sell. Now, you could say, well, Mayor, you just said those properties are going to be worth a lot of money. I mean, I don't know the exact value, but I know they will be worth more than they are today. But it doesn't mean people are going to run and put a for sale sign up. And if they do, then we'll develop it. We'll make it right. It'll look nice. You'll have the apartments. We'll meet our affordable housing obligation. The other thing with this whole affordable housing thing is, ladies and gentlemen, we need to protect ourselves against builder's remedy. If you are not under COA obligation, you can be sued by a developer for builder's remedy, it's called. And basically that means they will have the run of our community. Quote, I want to show an article, and not to knock or anything with our good friends in Cranford, but here's an article right here that I clipped out of a paper some months ago, and it says Cranford spends millions of dollars to avoid building apartments, okay? Millions of dollars out of the Star Ledger. And here it talks about how the original 400 units have been reduced to 300, now down to 250. So they got 250 units on a site and spent millions. 30 of them out of the 225 they're going to settle with is going to be affordable housing, low-income housing. And the township government in Cranford had to spend $18 million to buy out that property, okay? We can't afford to do that in Clark, ladies and gentlemen. You wouldn't want me doing that with your tax money, because it's our tax money. Let me tell you a little story about this here, okay? I think it was last fall. We were contacted by the company that's running Hyatt Hills Golf Course. And they said they have a proposal for the Hyatt Hills that they would like us to hear. We said, fine, come on in. the company Racer Trust came in with this related properties, a bunch of hotshots from New York City. The meeting didn't last very long because I asked them to leave my office, but they wanted us to rezone the Hyatt property from recreation to commercial residential, business, shopping residential. And I told them I wouldn't do that. And they presented different plans of the site. Okay? And on this site, what they were proposing, if you guys could get a up close shot of this. Can you zoom in a little bit on that? But anyway, I have this here. It's hard to see. We're getting our TV 36 folks here too.
That's as close as you go.
Okay, and we'll show you over here. Okay.
Hold it up.
We're manually zooming in, folks, so you could see. Now the problem is with me sitting behind it, I can't see it. But anyway, now, up over here in the purple, that was going to be residential. If you look right over here, that's the pond at Hyatt. And this was going to be retail area. Okay? This way. All right. Retail here, residential back there. There's a pond that's over here at Hyatt right now. And if you turn over to this page here, it was going to be built. Every square inch of that property would have been built. Ladies and gentlemen, this would have been a disaster for us in Clark. And the residents of Cranford, too, for that matter. It would have been a mess. We told them we were not interested. Thanks, guys. We're okay with this now. We told the people that we will never change that zoning. We will never welcome that. Now, going out the door after this 15-minute meeting, one of the gentlemen turned to me and said, "So, Mayor, how's your COA? Are you protected?" And at the time we were. I said, "Yes, sir, we are fully protected. You're not going to pull a builder's remedy here in Clark." Now, what's a builder's remedy? Okay. They buy the property from Racer Trust, who's running the golf course now, and it was the bankruptcy court-appointed group to liquidate the General Motor properties. And they come to Clark and say, "Clark, we'd like you to change the zoning to retail and residential." We tell them, "Hit the road, we're not doing it." Okay? They now file a lawsuit in court. They bring the plan that I showed you moments ago with retail and residential. At that point, our zoning gets thrown out the window. Our height requirement that we're allowed to build up to only in Clark gets thrown out the window. The truth be told is, they will basically go into court and say, "Your Honor, we need the zoning to be changed because we want to build low-income, affordable housing for the poor people of this state who can't afford to live in a town like Clark. And what we want to do, hypothetically, is we want to build 6, 7-story buildings. We want to put 4, 5, 6 buildings on that property. Because remember, the Hyatt Hills is 82 acres. We're not talking about 8 acres. We're talking about 82. And we want to fill that with, low to moderate income people. But, Your Honor, to do that, we have to build big box stores on the front half of the property. We want Walmart, we want Costco, we want X, Y, and Z to come in because that's the money I'm going to use to fund that low-income housing and make it affordable for these poor people who cannot, excuse me, I just dropped my glasses, could not afford to live in a township like Clark. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, we have to protect our community and go through with this plan that I am chewing on like it's an old piece of leather. Believe me, it's nothing I am welcoming or happy about by any stretch, nor is my council member, and nor are the volunteers who sit on the planning board, who, by the way, are your friends and your neighbors. Okay, we're all living with this. It doesn't exclude anything. Now, we've been hearing a lot of different comments, and one person said, "Well, why don't you put it up on Terminal Avenue where that vacant lot is?" Well, the vacant lot on Terminal Avenue is owned by the L'Oreal company, and they're planning to put a quarter to a $500 million research and development building up there. They've been talking about it for some years. They're always talking about it. It's still on the table. So we can't do that. We can't go to L'Oreal and say that unless we decide to go through eminent domain and into a court battle, which will cost millions of dollars, and in the end, they'll win, we'll lose, and the taxpayers will be out millions of dollars. The other thing is, when John talked earlier about a total of 263 units, is there anybody in Clark that could tell me where there is a site that can house 263 units? I don't know of any, folks. Maybe you do. Please let me know. We are 99% built. This is being jammed down our throat. It's overdevelopment. I agree. Clark, like every other town in Union County, some of the towns won't feel it as much, some of the inner cities, because they already have a big supply of over low and moderate income housing. But this is why our professionals had looked at the town and tried to spread it equitably throughout the community. A smidgen here, a smidgen there, if you will. The area of concentration would be the A&P site, the Jack's Tavern site, and downtown. That would take up a good share of it if and when that is ever to be developed. The other area, as we talked about earlier in the program, is the Walnut and Valley site. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, before we went and named that site, we were brought into it because of that site. The owner wanted to sell, as John said, got together with interested parties, and they came to Clark and said, look, here's what we're doing. This became a major part of our settlement. And the truth be told, that developer wanted to put a lot more there than he should. We worked with him, negotiated with him. Matter of fact, to be truthful, it's the same developer that built the Woodcrest Senior Citizen Housing in Clark. So we do know him. We know he's going to put up a fantastic product there. It's going to look very nice. And in that area, there'll be some low to moderate income housing along with regular market end apartments. And they have to be nice to be able to draw the revenue from the market rate to pay for the low and affordable units. Back when Woodcrest was being built, we had the notion, I should say, we had the option, wrong word, the option whether we should put low-income sites in Woodcrest or not. And we chose to do it. Maybe a lot of you don't even know that. There's senior citizens in there that are in the front building on Westfield Avenue. They're low-income units. We chose to do that when Christie was in his court fight saying, the governor, that he was going to do away with COA. And I prayed every night that he was right. I did. That's one area I agree with the governor on. I don't agree with him on much, but that's one area. The idea, when he lost, we're very glad we did, because we would have had another 60 units that would have been outstanding on this plan, bringing it up to, what, about 320 some units. So I'm sure there's a lot of you folks that don't even know that building is a low-income senior site. But that's what I want to point to say, this is the way it's going to be throughout the community. Don't let political flyers from members of the other party who have been rejected in so many elections, it's downright embarrassing that they have to run out and stoop to this. Now they're going to run in and say, we didn't do it. Folks, you're intelligent people in Clark. I always say, you can never fool Clark people. Who do you think did this? Who do you think did it? I mean, let's be realistic about it. Who has the most to gain? God forbid. And believe me, people like this get in power, low-income housing and affordable housing will be the least of your problems, trust me. And I think you saw that in this year's candidate night and what was going on there. John, at this point, I'll turn back to you if there's anything you have.
I think that's it. I think you wrapped it up pretty nicely, Mayor.
Well, thank you.
I hope those people come to April 6th, or those that are concerned about it come in and call us or show up at the meeting and express their concerns. But by and large, the process has been done. The courts are approving of our plan. Unfortunately or fortunately, the planning board has to adopt it, and we think it'll be beneficial to meet our obligations and still make Clark the place to live in New Jersey? Thank you.
Look, to my friends and neighbors in Clark and all the citizens, I've been in your government for 20 years. You know me. I grew up in this town. I live here. I have a family. I run a business. I've been protecting this town for 20 years as a mayor, as a councilman in government. When I tell you that you have my solemn word that we are going to do this right, unfortunately, we have to do it. I'm not happy about that. I'm really not happy about sitting here tonight having to explain this. Because again, what some other people want becomes our mess. If you ask me, what's the worst thing about being mayor, is when things are created outside of Clark that fall into Clark and other towns, that we, the people at the low end of the government, have to take out the toolbox and try to fix. So that's one of them. We hope this answered your questions. We hope this gives you an understanding to understand the entire building is not going to be low and affordable. It's going to be 15% of every building. They're going to be done tastefully. That's on the township, planning board and zoning board. That's on us. Okay, if those buildings aren't pretty, then you have a right to come back and scream and yell at us. But again, we want that standard set here in Clark. The way that this is, it will help spur an honest downtown Westfield Avenue. How long? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know. I think the target site will be A&P first. And I think everyone will be pretty happy if that has some stores or restaurants down below with some apartments on top. I think it'll be a real nice centerpiece to having people start to come and invest in downtown Westfield Avenue. That's a positive thing. I showed you articles from other towns that are spending millions. We talked to you tonight about builder's remedy and how important our community is to be protected by not having builders allow the courts to decide what and how much can go in Clark. The snowflakes of this state and this country are responsible for this type of stuff. I'm going to leave you with one other thought. Why do you think they're fighting so hard in Washington against President Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court? Because if one party gets in it and controls it, they look at things one way. If another party gets in, they look at it another way. And that's living proof right here in New Jersey. Ladies and gentlemen, believe me when I tell you, this is going to overcrowd this state worse than it is now. And our balance is that we're either going to swallow it and continue to live in New Jersey, or someday we're going to get sick of it and move out. Again, every town throughout the state is going to be battling this and going through the settlement agreement we did. We did it cost effectively. We did it professionally. There was a lot of thought, a lot of time into it. When these flyers come around, if the person who wrote this flyer, I'll give you a personal invite. If you'd like to come and take John's seat, I will open up these TV 36 cameras and you and I can talk about what you know, and I'll be able to explain to you what you really don't know. Because, ladies and gentlemen, affordable housing, COA, fair share, with all due respect to the average citizen, you folks don't know about it. It's a lot for us to swallow in government. I've been doing it for 20 years. A brand new person elected, it takes time. So when you see this type of stuff, give them their flyer back, call us, email us, come out to April 6th, ask your questions. We have nothing to hide from you. We're all living with it. If you want to object to this plan, though, in a legal matter, you're going to have to go to the Superior Court when the date's set to object in front of a judge. That's how serious this is, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope this clears up the fear. I hope this clears up the political demagogue that goes on when issues like this crop up. I hope I've answered your questions and John has answered your questions. We're here for you. April 6th will be a meeting at Johnson High School at 7:30. please come out. It's a Thursday night. If we answered your questions, stay home, watch a ball game, whatever. That's up to you. In the meantime, you know I'm around town every day. If I can answer any of your questions in my office, out of my office, John's here, in and out. Please feel free. Email. I got a call today from a friend. We discussed it. He was comfortable about it when I discussed it with him. So other than that, Sal Bonaccorso, your mayor, John Laezza, your business administrator. We thank our TV 36 crews, Phil Scardelli and Ed Davenport, for being here tonight, for presenting this to you. And I want to wish you all the best of health. God bless you all, and we love Clark. We'll protect it. Give us that. We will protect it. Have a great night.
Thank you.